Two Scoops Sunday here on Dog Post. Dean Legge from Dog Post, making you a smarter Georgia fan. I've got two pieces of information you're going to want to hear about. First, it looks like the Dawgs will be back on campus in June. So that's something that's been coming about for a little bit of time from the SEC. And the presidents of the 14 schools will be taking a vote this week about when they feel like is the best time for them to allow student athletes, specifically football players, back on campus. And, this is the important first step. We don't know if it's going to be June 1st or June 15th, but it's coming one way or the other. So that's the biggest thing that's going on, I would say, this week in the SEC. There's a lot that's been going on behind the scenes preparing for a college football season that is still not a certainty. But there's been a lot of reporting in the media this week about schools getting back to campus as soon as June 1st. But it does seem like this is going to happen by June 15th. June 15th gives you plenty of time to do what you need to do in terms of getting back to what would be a regular football season. And again, there's no certainty. I'm not reporting that there's a certainty that will happen. What I'm saying is that right now there is hopefulness that there will be a football season, and so the schools are getting ready for it. Again, if you're just joining me here on Two Scoops Sunday on Dog Post, what I'm saying is this is the first scoop. We'll have some scoop later as well. And that is that the SEC is going to vote here soon, the presidents of the SEC, on returning to campus either by June 1st, which is in a couple of weeks, or June 15th. It's one or the other. We're not totally sure which it will be yet, of course, because the vote has not happened yet. But my suspicion is that it will probably be June 15th. We'll see. We will see. It's a step forward towards a season that there is no certainty about. I mean, I read the contract today about the Georgia-Virginia game. Georgia's guaranteed more than $4 million for that game. That's a lot of money that the athletic department needs. I mean, that's not an insignificant amount of money for this season. We'll see. Now, what can they do when they get back? Typically what happens in June is that, Georgia and everyone else in the league just kind of goes through their summer conditioning, etc. But again, the steps here are they've got to vote. The presidents have to vote. This is the week that the SEC typically meets, so it's not surprising that this is coming about now. The people at LSU think it's going to happen. It's going to happen relatively quickly. There's some discussion, some scuttlebutt that Tennessee is. I mean, you can listen to the president from Tennessee, who is the most skeptical publicly of what's going on here as far as a fall football season is concerned. But, a 13-1 vote, or let's just call it, 8-4 or something like that, that would mean they're still moving forward. And Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, has been pretty stern with his discussion of this, which is that that the SEC is going to move forward. I said that the wrong way. That they don't need the other conferences to move forward necessarily. So that's something to remember and keep an eye on. If you start football practice, not practices, but football activities on June 1st, that would be completely normal. That would be exactly the way that it always is. If you start at June 15th, you're a little bit delayed, but, considering everything that's gone on, there's worse things in the world than being delayed slightly, coming into a football season that we still don't know for sure is going to happen. But I just, I think that, I think what I would say to everyone who's sort of asking questions online or, how is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? If the SEC has started convening football operations by June 1st, then that is an extremely optimistic and, if you want a football season, that is good news. June 15th, I don't think that's bad news. I just think that that's a little different than June 1st, only by, obviously the 2 weeks. I suspect that what's going on here is that the NCAA is going to grant schools, if we're still on track, there's a bunch of ifs here. If we're still on track, the NCAA is probably going to allow at least 2 to 4 weeks in July to let schools start practicing and acclimating not just to the weather but to a football season that they haven't even had. I mean, very few schools in the country had anything in the spring. I think South Carolina maybe had 2 or 3 practices, and perhaps Vanderbilt. But across, the landscape of college football, there were not a lot of spring practices. Obviously, Georgia didn't have one at all. It was canceled right as spring football was about to start in Athens. So this is a time that if you want football to come back, you should be very optimistic. You should be, cautiously optimistic if they get back on June 1st. All of this is, of course, predicated on are we going to have some sort of solution to what we're dealing with coronavirus. If we do not have that, the medical people that have been convened by the 14 schools in the SEC and just everyone in the country, you're not, if it doesn't pass with that group, it's not going to happen. So we don't need any more spikes. My opinion and advice to everyone, please do not slack off right now. If you're going to the grocery store, etc., wear your masks, participate in social distancing, be a good human being about this. Because, look, y'all, if you want a football season, what you do right now matters a lot. And so when you see me, I've got a mask. I forgot my mask the other day, and I was so angry with myself about it. But if you want a football season, you really need to be a good person, a good human being, and have that happen. You need all the hand sanitation, the washing of hands, and the masks. Now, 2 Scoop Sunday on Dog Post, right? So I do want to talk just for a second about recruiting. I appreciate the thousands of people who have been watching these. Okay, so real quick on 2 Scoop Sunday here on Dog Post. This is the second scoop. If you're on the website, then you know about this already. But Matt DeBerry, who is doing a great job for us covering recruiting, there's a 5-star kid in Paulding County. His name is Smile Munden. And I'm just going to read to you what Matt's report says. I wish that you would go ahead and click on the link below talking about Dawgs back in June. But here's what Matt had to say in his reporting. 5-star linebacker Smile Munden hinted on social media recently that he could be making his decision in June. While sources feel that the Tennessee Vols have made the biggest move lately in his recruitment, Dog Post still feels the Bulldogs are the team out in front behind the scenes. So it is, we're talking about a guy in Munden who is a 5-star kid in the state. I would have to go back and look. I guess Trevor Lawrence is one, but I can't think of another 5-star kid from this state that have left. Someone can correct me if that's not the case. But the point is that Georgia hasn't lost a meaningful recruiting battle to Tennessee, period, with Kirby in tow, and probably haven't lost a legitimate recruiting battle to Tennessee in some time, frankly. But for Georgia to continue to with all these 5-star kids and pushing forward the way that they are, I think the big thing is, Tennessee right now feels like it has momentum in recruiting. And they do have momentum in recruiting. But the difference is the kids that they're recruiting are not quite at the level that Alabama and Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, they're not at the level that Kirby Smart and company are recruiting at. This is an image coming up here of Kirby Smart in Knoxville. So keep an eye on that. Smile Monday, we still think is likely going towards Georgia, but we'll see. Things can change. Not a lot of questions out there tonight. I want to make sure to point everybody to dogpost.com. It's 2 Scoop Sunday. Just gave you 2 scoops. Go over to the website. We give you a scoop every day there. You can interact with me. You don't have to wait around for a chat on Facebook or YouTube.